Aloha mai kako, everyone. My name is Christopher Fujimoto. My mentor for this project was Dr. slash Chef Lauren Tamamoto, and my research project is called Ulu Flower, an exploratory study. So a little bit of background information. What is ulu flower? So ulu flower is made from breadfruit, which is a largely underutilized local canoe crop with a high yield but low shelf life. Hawaii now imports nearly 100% of its staple foods, including virtually all of its flours. So, given the need to increase food security and decrease food waste, drying and milling breadfruit into flours offers a promising way to extend this fruit's shelf life while creating a local, sustainable, and high quality staple for local consumption with significant export market potential. With ulu fruit production increasing over the years, so too can ulu flower production be considered for mass production. In terms of nutritional facts, total dietary fiber of breadfruit flour is 3 times higher than typical commercial bleached all-purpose flour. That also being said, ulu flour carries on a lot of the same properties as the ulu fruit itself. So it is gluten-free. It does have a low glycemic index. It has a multitude of nutritional facts that we actually don't full on put inside of the nutritional label because there's a lot. But if you look on the Ulu Cooperative's website, you can find, full on nutritional health benefits from Ulu itself. And then that, like I said, that also translates into the nutrition facts for ulu flour. And then on the right, you have defining ulu flour specs, which is what we pretty much like summed up. We have peeled, which is very close to like an AP flour, not bleached, but it's just only the fruit. Whereas whole breadfruit flour has the skin and the core, so it does increase its nutritional benefit now that you have the skin and the core in, and it also has a different color and offers different texture and flavor when you use it. So together with the Ulu Cooperative, I was able to help them develop and do research for and with ulu flour so that we could have a marketable product ready for manufacturing and for the consumers. One of the results of our work was the creation of an ulu flour guide. One of the pages that came with the ulu flour guide obviously was an ulu flour production visual chart. So to pretty much, for lack of time, to simply go over, receiving or harvesting is the first step. And then there's storage, which is held between 41 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. This also helps to, slow the fruit over ripening. And then that goes to sorting, washing, and sanitizing. So that's just to remove a lot of the sap on the skin. And then they are quartered and placed into a citric acid bath to minimize the oxidation. So a lot of times when you cut ulu, it turns that brown color, and so that can actually ruin the color of the flour too. So this prevents that from happening and allows to have a much pure color for the flour. In terms of milling, the dried ulu is then milled in a certified kitchen. So it's just it has like a little grain filters that helps to, shake, and then like all the flour will come out as it's doing that. And then you have the drying. So shreds or slices are placed on a drying tray in a single layer and dehydrated between 140 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit until they are crisp. And then the breadfruit quarters are then thinly sliced or shredded using a commercial food processor. Oh no. Yes, sorry. Sorry, my bad. I thought I had the slides wrong. Anyways, and after that, it goes to packaging. And then there's storage, and then there's distribution. So before we could even come up with these, flour guide and all, before we come up with the flour guide and get it fully ready for the consumer, we had, they wanted me to do some culinary application trials just to see the properties. And so I was actually given 4 flours. So what the Ulu Cooperative actually sells right now is only 2 varieties, mature peeled and mature whole. But I was actually given immature peeled and immature whole as well. And it was just to see if like they could make use of, because sometimes when they receive from the farmers, there's some stray unripe ulu that comes in. And so they wanted to see if I could do any testing with the unripe as well as with the ripe to see if both could be used, and see if even the unripe was a marketable product, which could also help them to decrease um, cost, because if they're getting unripe and then they're just throwing it away, that's waste. And so they want to see if they could utilize something that they technically don't want, but they're getting, and see if that could also become a marketable product. And so that's kind of what I was working with for flowers, and different culinary application tests. So the first test that I did was a shortbread cookie test. So I actually did two different recipes at two different supplementation of ulu flour into the recipes. And so the first one that I did, the recipe actually was not that good, but I did it at 50%. So it was closer to more like a pie crust rather than shortbread cookie. Um, it wasn't very much like the local shortbreads that we like to eat. So in terms of that, it was overly crumbly, wasn't the favorite, but it already proved that 50% supplementation into the recipe with ulu flour was not a good idea, because it was overly strong smell, taste. And so that was kind of off-putting, especially for people that don't like ulu. So I changed the recipe into a more local Hawaii shortbread, and then I reduced it to about 30% supplementation. And with that being said, when it came to the mature peeled and mature whole, which is, like I said, what we're actually marketing those two flowers, the sensory evaluation was highest actually for the mature whole in terms of shortbread, and was slightly lower for mature peeled. So the mature whole actually had kind of like a caramelized nutty flavor, which is really cool, because, like I said, there's no nuts. And because the recipe for shortbread is basically sugar, butter, vanilla, and flour. That's it. So if the flour has a, strong flavor, it'll come through a lot, because there's no strong additional flavors. Even with vanilla, the ulu can overpower the vanilla, in terms of the flour. And so pretty much throughout doing the tests, um, for this test, the immature one was not that good at all. It didn't have a good flavor. It had kind of like a raw, overly starchy flavor, and the texture wise, it wasn't the greatest. So that's why I only focused on the mature one. The second test that I was able to do was banana bread. So like I mentioned in the beginning, right, that was a bland recipe. Any addition with the ulu flour, if there's nothing else to cover it up, the ulu flour comes through really strong. Whereas banana bread, the recipe contained, bananas, coconut, milk, there's lime. And so there was a lot of stuff that could easily hide the flour. And so I decided to immediately go straight up with like a 50% supplementation inside of the banana breads. And so like I'm, just like the original, I only showing the mature peeled and mature whole, because those are the ones that we're going forward with the Ulu Cooperative. And so the sensory evaluation, it was kind of split. It didn't really, it wasn't a big difference between the whole or the peeled, because the bread itself, like the flavorings kind of not hid, but they were directly on par with ulu flour. So you could, you're eating it and you're still like, oh, this is banana bread, but it was enough ulu flour inside that you had like undertones of the ulu inside while you were eating it. So that was really cool. And one of the things that I wanted to do also was to see, like I was saying, I was doing tests with the immature flowers, or the green unripe flowers. And so I wanted to do like a mixed ulu flower to see if you could mix the immatures with the mature. So the test was pretty much to see how mixing mature and immature ulu flowers together affected taste, texture, smell, and appearance of the banana bread. The percentages made up of the supplemented portion of 50% in the recipe used, so just like the other ones. The ratings were not that good at all. And not only that, but it affected like the rise of the banana bread. So a lot of the banana breads actually sank way too much. So that it didn't, they rose in the oven, and then right when they took it out to cool, they sank more than just one type of ulu flour inside. So that was interesting to me. Okay. And the last test that I did was an ulu flour demo in March of 2021, this past March. And it was pretty much to do a demo in which ulu flour is used in the entire components, or in all of the components of the meal. So the ulu flour was in the batter for the fried chicken. It was in the biscuits. It was in used as a thickener for the mushroom gravy, and then it was also used in the dessert. So it was a white pineapple crisp. So it was used to make the like the streusel mix that goes on top. So it was kind of showing versatility of ulu flour and how it can be used all in one meal. Fried, baked, sauce, baked again, right? So it was kind of cool. And then we were able to receive feedback as well. So we had about 50 people do the demo, buy the box, and then watch the demo and stuff. And so it was cool to realize that pretty much like almost 70 close to 75% or about three quarters of the participants had never used ulu flour prior to the cooking demo. um, and and when it came to asking them if they would recommend this box to family or friends, about 81% of them said yes, while 19% of them said no. So with that being said, most of them bought the box with the intent of learning how to use the ulu flour. They wanted to support, Hawaii farmers. They wanted to learn how to use indigenous crops. And then, fourthly, learning new cooking skills in the kitchen with an indigenous product. So another thing is too, I wanted to know why some people said that they wouldn't, recommend the box. And their satisfaction, most of them are happy with it, but there are a couple that didn't really like it. And so when I read through comments and stuff, some of them people said, it was good recipes and ingredients, but it's too expensive. So the price point right now of ulu flour is very high because there's not a lot of it, right? And demand has to increase for supply to increase, and then price can switch around. So most of these people pretty much said it's expensive. It was an expensive box, and I know that that's off-putting. That's off-putting for me, right? So, but pretty much coming to conclusions about what I've done. We pretty much discovered that 10% to 30% ulu flour supplementation was found to be the best ratio in shortbread cookies and had the most potential of consumer acceptance. So that applied to most baked goods where there is little to no other flavorings that can mask the flour. So using it at about 10 to 30% supplementation of the flour ratio in whatever recipe you use is the best. While 50% to 60% of ulu flour supplementation could be found to be the best ratio in banana bread recipe that had the most potential of a consumer acceptance. So in terms of baked goods where there's additional flavorings like fruit flavoring, vanilla, chocolate, etc., ulu flour can be used in higher ratios. The flour can also act as a thickening agent in terms of sauces, soups, stir fries, etc., similar to other starches like corn or tapioca. And from the cooking demo, I learned that while many are open to using this local flour, there are factors such as cost and usage options that still need to be addressed or discussed. And going forward, to increase the usage or consumption of ulu in the future, the price of the ulu flour definitely needs to go down. I think that was off-putting for some people. There needs to be more media coverage to spread the awareness through chefs, farmers, home cooks, schools, etc. And we have to create more advocates or product ambassadors that are willing to experiment more with ulu flour, get the word out there, because it's here in Hawaii. Word of mouth is one of the biggest ways that we promote products. And so once this starts to get out there, we hope that demand will increase, and once the demand increases, we can start harvesting maybe more, we can start planting more. Maybe we can incorporate more farmers into the cooperative so that the supply can increase. And one of the reference studies that I did, that we based a lot of our research or foundational research off of, was from Alfred Chen's master's thesis, which was characterization and functional properties of breadfruit flour, which he did in 2016. And he pretty much did a lot of the scientific background, starch gelatinization properties. He did the basic functional properties, so fiber content, bulk density, water absorption capacity, and oil absorption capacity. And some of the key results or conclusions from Chen's study from the Ma'afala variety. So most of the ulu cooperatives one is the Hawaiian breadfruit. He used the Samoan variety. He noticed, there's a need to increase food availability and decrease food waste. whole breadfruit flour can potentially be used for bakery products, and cored breadfruit flour can be used as like a thickening agent or in many viscous foods. And one of the main things that inspired us was because he stated, he only performed basic scientific research, and that culinary application research would need to happen in order to test out his theories and findings in terms of consumption and cooking practices. So, he found science, but in terms of actually cooking with it, realizing what it does to baked goods and stuff like that would still need to be done. So I took on that role and I did that. And so we kind of picked up where he kind of left off. And I just want to say, last mahalo nui to Dana and the Ulu Cooperative for providing me with Ulu flour to do this research. My mentor, Chef and Dr. Lauren Tamamoto, Alfred Chen for his research study done in 2016, the participants in my smaller study and demo, KCC, SURF coordinators, and the B2B grants. Mahalo nui, and I hope to see you guys soon.